Yu Menglong crisis communication. How families, management agencies, and authorities should respond. The passing of Yu Menglong struck like a tremor through the heart of millions. It was not merely the death of a beloved artist, but a moment that forced fans, families, and the entire entertainment industry to confront how tragedy is communicated in an age of instant sharing and relentless speculation. When news travels faster than facts, crisis communication becomes not just a duty, but an act of compassion, responsibility, and respect for truth. In moments of loss, silence and confusion often become louder than any statement. People rush to fill the gaps with whispers, theories, and fragments of half-truths. Yet behind the digital storm are families struggling to breathe, management teams scrambling to balance privacy with public expectation, and authorities working against the pressure of viral narratives. In the wake of Yu Menglong's death, the question is not only how he died, but how those around him, and those who loved him from afar, can be better protected from the psychological and emotional aftershocks of misinformation and mismanagement. When a public figure dies unexpectedly, there are usually two parallel realities: the personal tragedy and the public event. For the family, it is intimate, a moment of unbearable loss. For the fans, it becomes communal, an experience shared across millions of screens. That intersection can either be a space of unity or chaos depending on how communication is handled. The first hours are crucial. What families, agencies, and authorities say and what they withhold can either calm emotions or fuel hysteria. Crisis communication experts often emphasize three principles: timeliness, truthfulness, and empathy. Each is equally vital. Timeliness prevents rumors from filling the vacuum of uncertainty. Truthfulness ensures credibility, and empathy preserves the humanity that must remain at the center of any crisis response. In Yu Menglong's case, early confusion online amplified speculation. Social media became a flood of conflicting reports, some claiming accidents, others insisting on darker causes. Within hours, hashtags trended globally and narratives hardened into assumed facts. What began as grief quickly turned into a public trial of emotions and suspicions. The responsibility of a management agency in such moments is profound. They act as the bridge between the personal and public spheres. Their role is not only to protect the artist's legacy, but also to manage the emotional safety of fans who may be deeply affected. The ideal response should start with a clear, verified statement issued in coordination with family and authorities, confirming the basic facts and expressing gratitude for the public's concern. It should not speculate, assign blame, or provide unnecessary detail. Transparency does not mean total exposure. It means honesty within compassionate limits. Equally important is how communication continues after the first statement. The public deserves updates, but not at the expense of dignity. Agencies and officials should coordinate with mental health professionals to provide resources for those affected by the loss. Grief, when magnified by celebrity culture, can lead to dangerous extremes, from self-harm to social aggression. Public mourning needs guidance. It needs a voice that reminds everyone that while the artist was loved, the people left behind are still healing. Families often struggle under impossible expectations. They are asked to grieve publicly, to respond to strangers, to explain the unexplainable. Yet their silence is sometimes mistaken for secrecy and their statements for performance. Compassionate communication means protecting their privacy without letting misinformation thrive. A joint message from family and management can help. One that thanks fans, clarifies facts, and sets healthy boundaries for media and the public. This kind of united front prevents exploitation and gives fans a sense of closure without invading the family's grief. The role of authorities is equally delicate. When investigations are underway, it is easy for leaks, rumors, or manipulated content to circulate. A responsible agency or police department must communicate with precision and neutrality, avoiding vague comments that fuel public imagination. Updates should be factual and limited to verified findings. In the age of viral media, every word is magnified, every pause is interpreted. Professionalism and humanity must go hand in hand. Yet beyond communication lies another dimension: prevention. The tragedy of Yu Menglong also opens a broader conversation about the role of intoxication and risk in fatal accidents. Whether through alcohol, stress, exhaustion, or environmental hazards, artists often live under pressures that heighten vulnerability. When combined with long hours, emotional fatigue, and public scrutiny, even small lapses in judgment can turn deadly. The entertainment industry has long been accused of normalizing overwork and emotional suppression. This culture must change if future tragedies are to be avoided. Preventive measures begin with awareness. Management teams should prioritize mental health and safety checks as seriously as they do contracts and schedules. Regular counseling, wellness breaks, and substance use education can save lives. On a personal level, artists need safe spaces to express exhaustion or despair without fear of judgment or professional repercussions. On a systemic level, governments and industry regulators must enforce policies that monitor work hours, provide confidential support hotlines, and ensure that production environments follow safety and health standards. Intoxication-related accidents often reveal more than individual errors. They expose the absence of support structures. When celebrities fall, the narrative too often centers on scandal rather than system failure. The focus should shift from blame to prevention. Education about responsible consumption, early intervention for substance dependency, and routine medical assessments should become standard industry practices. Moreover, peers and colleagues must be trained to recognize warning signs and intervene appropriately. A culture of care within agencies and teams can transform crisis management into crisis prevention. Public grief, too, demands structure. When millions mourn together online, the boundary between tribute and obsession can blur. Platforms can play a crucial role in guiding this energy toward positivity by creating official memorial spaces, curating verified information, and preventing harmful content from spreading. The digital public square can either deepen despair or promote healing, depending on how it is managed. Families and agencies should collaborate with platforms to ensure that memorials are respectful and misinformation is swiftly addressed. Mental well-being extends beyond fans. The management staff, colleagues, and even journalists covering such tragedies often experience secondary trauma. Repeated exposure to distressing news, graphic rumors, and emotional outrage can leave psychological scars. Organizations must recognize this and offer counseling or decompression sessions for their teams. The health of the storytellers affects the health of the story itself. Effective crisis communication also relies on tone. Words must carry both authority and compassion. Statements filled with corporate jargon or cold detachment alienate audiences and deepen distrust. The days following Yu Menglong's passing were unlike any other. Streets once filled with laughter and music from his films and songs suddenly turned still. Fans gathered in candlelit corners of the city, clutching photos and flowers, their tears glistening under the soft glow of their phones. The online world mirrored this grief. Millions of posts, memories, and questions poured in from every corner of the globe. Yet beneath the sea of mourning lay something more complex: confusion, unanswered questions, and a growing desperation for truth. This was the very moment when crisis communication mattered most. The silence of those who knew the truth became louder than any words. Fans didn't just want explanations, they wanted assurance. Assurance that the man they admired was being honored with honesty and care. The weight of that responsibility fell upon his family, his management agency, and the authorities tasked with uncovering what had really happened. Each word, each gesture, became a thread in the fragile web of public trust. When crisis strikes, timing becomes a moral question. Release information too soon, and you risk spreading unverified details. Wait too long, and people begin to write their own version of the story. The art of communication lies in balance, giving enough to calm hearts without feeding the flames of speculation. For Yu Menglong's loved ones, this was not just a PR task, it was emotional labor. They had to navigate between grief and duty, between silence and transparency. In that balance, the tone of public mourning is set. The emotional landscape of such a moment is vast and unpredictable. Fans cry not only for the artist, but for the pieces of themselves reflected in his songs, his roles, his presence. When that presence disappears, it feels like a personal loss. That's why public grief can so easily spiral into chaos when information is mishandled. Each rumor, each false post, feels like an attack on the memory of someone deeply cherished. Responsible communication, then, becomes a form of protection, not just for the family, but for every heart tethered to that loss. Imagine a fan scrolling through social media late at night, clinging to hope. A headline flashes across the screen, unconfirmed, sensational, cold. The heart races, the mind refuses to believe it, yet curiosity clicks. In seconds, grief turns to anger, anger to confusion, and confusion to blame. This is how misinformation spreads, not through malice, but through emotion unguarded. The antidote is compassion in communication. When official statements are warm, human, and honest, they calm the sea of emotions before it becomes a storm. Yu Menglong's tragedy also shines a light on another uncomfortable truth: the quiet dangers of exhaustion, pressure, and intoxication in entertainment culture. The life of a celebrity may appear glittering, but behind the smiles often lie sleepless nights, physical strain, and emotional isolation. When exhaustion meets expectation, accidents become more likely. The industry must begin to recognize that well-being is not a luxury, it is survival. Management agencies should no longer treat counseling or wellness checks as optional perks. They should be integral to every artist's career, just as rehearsals and contracts are. There must be regular mental health assessments, safety briefings, and awareness programs about substance use and responsible coping mechanisms. The goal is not to control, but to care, to ensure no one suffers silently under the weight of fame. Authorities, too, hold power in shaping prevention. Policies can make a difference when they prioritize workplace safety in performance industries, ensure fair rest periods, and promote health accountability. Just as sports organizations have protocols to protect athletes, entertainment agencies should adopt systems to protect artists from burnout, intoxication risks, and avoidable accidents. When policy, compassion, and professionalism unite, lives can be saved. The role of fans and media in these scenarios cannot be overlooked. Every share, every post, every headline becomes part of the collective memory of the deceased. In the digital era, words live forever. The challenge is not just to mourn responsibly, but to communicate responsibly. Fans can honor their idols by refusing to share unverified claims. Journalists can honor their profession by verifying before amplifying. Together, they can transform the digital landscape from a rumor mill into a space of remembrance and respect. Public mourning is a delicate ritual. It must allow emotional release without turning into spectacle. Vigils, online tributes, and memorial events can offer healing if guided with sensitivity. The best memorials do not glorify tragedy, they celebrate life. They remind people not of how someone died, but of how they lived. In Yu Menglong's case, this means cherishing his art, his laughter, and his influence, while also learning from the circumstances that took him too soon. True communication does not end when the cameras fade. It continues in how the story is preserved, in how agencies protect his image from exploitation, how fans keep his legacy alive through kindness, and how the public moves from grief to understanding. Healing begins when the truth is accepted, not as gossip, but as shared humanity. In every crisis, there comes a moment of reckoning, a question of what could have been done differently. Yu Menglong's story offers lessons that extend far beyond celebrity culture. It teaches us that honesty can coexist with privacy, that silence is not always strength, and that compassion should guide every word we speak in times of loss. It reminds authorities to communicate with clarity, management to act with empathy, families to protect their peace, and fans to grieve with grace. When a public figure dies, the tragedy belongs to everyone, but the pain belongs first to the family. Their right to mourn must always come before the public's right to know, respecting that boundary is an act of love, not neglect. And when communication bridges that gap gently, grief transforms into something sacred, a shared understanding that even in death, dignity must prevail. As the candles flickered out at Yu Menglong's memorial, fans whispered his lyrics through trembling voices. In that moment, truth was not found in headlines or speculation. It was found in connection. Every tear shed was a vow to remember, and every moment of silence was a message louder than any rumor. The legacy of Yu Menglong is not only in his art, but in what his passing can teach us about humanity. That transparency, care, and kindness are not optional in crisis. They are essential. That every statement should heal, not harm. That the measure of respect we show the departed defines who we are as a society. Because when communication is done with heart, it becomes more than information. It becomes a bridge between pain and peace.